All right, we're bringing in fresh recruits to talk about this dramatic Wells Fargo day spurring a gigantic stock market rally. We have Jack Gage of Forbes magazine. We have CNBC contributor Jerry Bowyer, plus Robert Reich and Art Laffer are still with us. Jerry Bowyer, I'm reading this Wells Fargo thing very bullish. Right. It's a sign of housing bottom, mortgage bottom, economic activity. What's your take on this? Because I think there's more. These banks are coming down the pike with better earnings. Right. It's the most underrated sector right now.
Right. This Wells Fargo is the archetype. This is the model. This is the way we see our way out of the recession and into the recovery. It is the Bernanke boom. It's not the Obama boom, despite what Secretary Reich is about to say. It's the Bernanke boom. It's not going to be Nirvana, of course. We've got all sorts of policy problems. But right now, the big story is we have an upward-sloping yield curve. Banks can borrow cheap, lend high. That's good for profits, and that unclogs the credit system. And then everything that's dependent on credit, houses, cars, durable goods, follow after that.
And guess what? We are seeing improvement in houses, cars, durable goods. We even had an uptick in business CapEx orders. And when you say that this is a Bernanke recovery and not an Obama recovery, do you mean the Milton Friedman money supply cranked up by Bernanke in contrast to the big government spending of the Obama administration? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I mean.
I want to be very clear on this.
They're going to try to take credit for it. But none of the spending has happened yet, so unless there's some kind of magic, there's no alchemy in which the president has given us an upward-sloping yield curve. That's the Fed's job. The Fed did its job. Bernanke has gotten us out of this. Now, my concern politically is that Obama looks back and has a confirmation bias and says, look at the magic I've done. Just the rumor of my spending brought us into...
That's going to be the big debate, Jack Gage. Now, first of all, do you buy into the Wells Fargo bull market economic recovery scenario? Let's just clear that up.
Absolutely. And for the reason Jerry said, because they're now able to borrow cheaply and lend more expensively, and their net interest margin as a result is up 20, 30 basis points shy of what it was a year, 18 months ago. So this is a very positive sign, second largest home lender in the nation. Wells Fargo is...
It's all about mortgages. Right. It's all about mortgages. The mortgage applications, I think we got a chart someplace.
Up 11%.
Off the charts. Off the chart.
Right.
Refis, actually purchase applications are booming. Right, and we know from our great friend Mark Perry of the Carpe Diem blog, who chronicles this on a daily basis, as prices fall, sales are going up. I believe that's called free market economics. Now, let me ask you, coming back to this point from Jerry Bowyer, with which the distinguished former Labor Secretary Robert Reich disagrees. Do you feel that it's Milton Friedman's money supply, as enacted by Ben Bernanke's huge liquidity creation, or Obama's government spending, transfers, and so forth coming out of Washington?
Look, this is very simple.
Who is responsible
This is very simple. This is monetary policy. Monetary policy got us into this mess. It's going to lead us out. Economic policy not only hasn't it had time to work, but if anything, it's going to do its best to prolong the recession and make it tougher to get out of this schneid. The monetary policy we're seeing from the Fed is no question helping the situation right now and leading us out of it.
Robert Reich, you got your work cut out for you.
Well, certainly on this program, with 4 of you against me, I mean, what can I do? Let me just say something with regard to the stress test, because I think this needs to be understood. I believe that these stress tests really are preludes. They are setting out the justification for Geithner going back to Congress and saying, I only have $110 billion left on TARP, I need more money. And we are going to see a kind of a showdown over the next couple of months. Congress is going to say, we don't want to do it, the public is against us, and that is when Geithner is going to demand some scalps. That's exactly what he did with General Motors in order to justify a little bit more of a bailout for the auto industry.
To get the added TARP money that I devoutly oppose, I might add, and I think I heard you with a similar view in the last segment, you're saying the bank CEO scalps will be the price to pay to get another, whatever, $500 billion to $1 trillion in TARP. That's a very interesting point.
I think it's not only the bank scalps, maybe 1 or 2, but it is also setting out whatever results come out of these stress tests, and the stress tests are designed to prove the point that more money is going to be needed for TARP. Now, Larry, I am with you on TARP. I am very skeptical that TARP is working. I think it's a money drain. It's kind of a big sump pump, but I believe that this is what is behind the Treasury's strategy.
Well, let me get your response to that, Art Laffer. Now, John Harwood, really, in my opinion, is just about the best political observer in Washington. We're very fortunate to have him here. He does not think that President Obama wants to go deeper into the CEO firing and replacement business. Bob Reich makes some very important points, and Art, at the tag end of that, is toxic nation an asset or a liability for this economic recovery? Because you got toxic asset nation supporters here on Wall Street, Art.
You know, I think John Harwood was right, and I don't agree with Robert on this. I think it would be a mistake for Obama to really start meddling with these companies and with their executives. And I don't think Geithner's going to use a play here against them. It would be just very impolitic. And as powerful as Geithner is, I don't think he's as powerful as Obama in this one.
All right, so you think...
But Art, understand my point. I'm not saying it's a good idea.
Point.
I'm simply saying that in terms of politics, this is going to compel it if he wants to get more than another kind of a TARP 2.
But Geithner has to get through Obama to do that, Robert. And you know, when we were in the White House there, the Treasury Secretary couldn't do that decision on his own just to get money through TARP. You got to get it through the White House. Knowing Emmanuel, he's not going to let that happen with Geithner.
Jerry Bowyer, another interpretation of this stress test is not a CEO firing.
Right.
But the Treasury will hold a gun to the head of the big banks and force them to sell toxic assets, which may not be in their interest to say, look, if the banks are getting profitable, then they can use that to build out the toxic asset valuation problem, which some people like me think, if you have better regulatory accounting, isn't really the problem it's made out to be. But is that how, because look, the TALF program for securitization has been a bust.
That's it.
It's been an absolute bust. There's no bids. The hedge funds don't want to go near the federal government and the Congress and the legislation. So I want to ask you, maybe this is how Treasury is going to get toxic asset sales and TALF through by using this stress test.
And bondholders for auto companies back to the bargaining table without pushing anyone into bankruptcy.
Oh, no, expand on that.
Well, look, basically, I mean, the two bailout stories really converge with one another because the big problem for the auto companies is the debt. Who holds the debt? The big money center banks. And they're not interested in sort of giving in and taking huge haircuts on that. They don't want to be the only one taking a haircut, and the UAW gets away with, with no haircut at all. So this is, by putting pressure on the banks, you can get the banks to write down the debt for the auto companies, which is what Obama really cares about. Right. And as for the firing, let me make a quick point about the firing. You don't have to shoot 2 prisoners. You just have to shoot 1. They shot a CEO. Now the possibility of it is all they need to have the leverage to get these guys to do whatever they want.
Well, that's a good... But Jack Gage, just on the way out, y'all are coming back. Don't you think it's ironic, at least, that these banks are coming in with big profits? What do they need all this TARP money for? Why don't we retire TARP money?
Absolutely.
They're talking about insurance companies, newspaper publishers. If banks are making money, then the government is totally redundant in this and about every other thing.
Then the government doesn't have control. That's the
well, do you think the Obama administration wants to control the economy, Jack?
The interesting question...
Geithner is on a power trip. There's no question that this is a way of gaining control of Wall Street.
Robert Reich, did you hear that assertion from ACE senior Forbes editor Jack Gage that the Obamas want to control the economy?
Why would anybody want to control Wall Street now? That's the last thing I would want to control. But look, let me just put a flag here, and that is that with the Accounting Standards Board saying we're getting rid of mark-to-market accounting, who knows what these toxic assets are actually worth? Who knows that that the banks are actually making money?
But aren't Laffer just the last word here? This TARP thing, my National Review friend and editor Rich Lowry says it's a big political slush fund that helps industrial planning. It's now guaranteeing lube jobs for General Motors warranties.
I have been against the TARP program when it was first announced. I'm against it now. I think it's the wrong thing to do, and I think it will make the economy worse in the long run, not better.
I think you've had this TARP thing exactly right. I think you've been a little slow on the trigger to see the economic recovery forces at work. Now, Robert Reich is going to be the
I'm an old man, Larry.
By the time Bob Reich pulls the recovery trigger, we'll be in the 2nd year. But I'm glad to hear you on TARP. I think that's terrific. Everybody stay right where you are. We have much more to do. I want to look at the message of the stock market beyond banks. It is precisely the economic sectors that are booming right now, including the small cap stocks and the emerging stocks. That has economic recovery all over it. I give it 50-50. The 2nd quarter, positive GDP, the Kudlow report. We will be here to talk